Coming up, you can spot the camera operator reflected in the glass doors ahead, covered with a black sheet in an attempt to hide them. Pulp Fiction is undoubtedly a modern-day classic that still stands the test of time decades later, but even masterpieces have mistakes, and this one has plenty. In today's video, we're putting all of them in the spotlight. If you've never seen this movie, be warned, there are spoilers ahead, and you should absolutely go and watch it immediately. In the opening scene with Pumpkin and Honey Bunny, the items on the table keep changing positions between cuts. Honey Bunny pours milk into her coffee and sets the jug down in front of her, but when the camera cuts to Pumpkin, it's gone. In the next wide shot, the milk is back in front of her, and since the previous wide, the sugar and their bill have moved as well. When it cuts wide again, everything is back where it started, with the addition of this used napkin. It cuts to Pumpkin again, and a small yellow square appears next to his coffee cup that wasn't there before. There's also a red stripe on the corner edge of the table here that isn't in other shots. Focusing on Honey Bunny through this scene, she has her arms crossed and hands by her sides. The used napkin is on her left, milk jug is in the center of the table, and the sugar is near the window. Cut to her close-up, and now her hands are together, and both the napkin and the milk have shifted in front of her arm. In the next shot, the napkin is gone, and the milk has moved next to the sugar, which has jumped in front of her elbow. Then, in the two-shot with Pumpkin, the milk's moved again to a different spot in front of her, the sugar has slid closer to the window, and the napkin's under her forearm. Her hands remain together until the next wide shot, where they're suddenly around her coffee mug, and the milk and napkin are back to her left. In the scene where we're first introduced to Vincent and Jules driving to the apartment, you can sometimes spot the reflection of their car in the background, and can even see the wheels of the trailer underneath, towing them along.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
What do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
A quarter pounder with cheese isn't, and has never been called a Royale with cheese. It's actually called Le Royale cheese, or the Royal cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
The magazine that Jules inserts into his pistol in this shot is empty. You can tell by this hollow space where you should be able to see the brass casing of a round ready to feed. When Jules first grabs the big Kahuna burger, it's completely untouched in the close-up. But as he takes his first bite, it's already been partially eaten.
You're a smart motherfucker, that's right.
He throws the burger down in front of Brett, and the label on the drink gives away that it's been moved since the last shot. The burger wrapper, which was crumpled before, is suddenly flattened out neatly, and throughout the whole scene, the big Kahuna bag keeps playing hide and seek. It's never visible in the shots of Brett, but it's right next to the cup in all of the wider shots of the apartment. When Jules shoots the man on the sofa, we see a bullet leave his weapon. But there's no recoil, no smoke, and no muzzle flash like we see later in the scene when he and Vincent kill Brett. There's also no visible wound, and while it's not clear if the shot is meant to have killed the man, you can clearly see him still breathing later in the scene. When Jules fires at Brett the first time, the same thing happens again.
Does he look like a bitch? What?
No recoil, no smoke, no muzzle flash, and no bullet wound of any kind.
Does he look like a bitch?
Brett raises his hands the moment before his execution, and you can clearly see that he still doesn't have a bullet wound. When we first see Butch, there's a long shot of him listening to Marcellus Wallace. As Marcellus talks, the camera begins to drift, slowly veering off to the right before correcting itself and sliding back into position. When Vincent enters Mia's house, you can spot the camera operator reflected in the glass doors ahead. They're covered with a black sheet in an attempt to hide them. Mia talks to the Ed Sullivan maitre d', and you can see her bangs are thinly splayed out. In the very next shot, they're thicker and freshly groomed. Vincent holds the menu by the bottom left corner, but in the wide shot, he's holding it at the top, in the center. Mia's cigarette is in her left hand in this shot.
What about you, Peggy Sue?
But when the camera cuts to her placing her order, it's suddenly in her right.
I'll have the Durwood Kirby burger and $5 shake.
This mistake is consistent throughout the scene as the camera switches between these angles. Each time the shot switches between Mia and Vincent in this sequence, the video wall behind them jumps, cutting to a different part of the scene each time. The level of Mia's $5 shake fluctuates throughout the Jackrabbit Slim scene. She drinks a little before sliding it over to Vincent, but between shots, the level suddenly drops. The level barely changes when he tries some.
God damn, it's a pretty f***ing good milkshake.
He slides the shake back to Mia, and the glass is full again, but the cherry stem's no longer pointing straight up. Mia drinks some more, yet the shake hardly goes down. But when she returns from the bathroom, the glass is noticeably emptier than it was before. In Mia's bathroom close-up, her fringe is suddenly neatly brushed and her lipstick noticeably darker than in the other Jackrabbit Slim shots. The red ketchup bottle keeps changing position between shots. Sometimes it's behind Mia's $5 shake, other times it's in front of her.
Here! Wanna dance?
When Vincent asks Mia what she thinks about what happened to Tony Rocky Horror, he tells her what he'd heard, and she repeats it back to him, but adds a new detail that Vincent never mentioned. It was a 4-story window.
What did you think about what happened to Antoine?
Fell out of a window.
Well, that is one way to say it. Another way is to say he was thrown out of a window by Marcellus because of you.
Who told you?
They?
What else did they say?
They just said that Antoine had given you a foot massage.
You heard Marcellus threw Tony Rocky Horror out a 4-story window for giving me a foot massage? Can you believe that?
At the time I was told it sounded reasonable.
She even says it a second time when questioning Vincent.
Marcellus throwing Tony out of a 4-story window for massaging my feet seem reasonable?
If this isn't a script oversight, or John Travolta missing that detail in his line, it might hint that Mia knows more about what happened to Tony than she's letting on. When Mia and Vincent get back to her house, Mia's wearing Vincent's coat. She sits down and puts a cigarette in her mouth, and the coat is gone. In the very next shot, it's back again, and she pulls a lighter from the pocket. Next, she finds Vincent's heroin and says, "Hello." You can clearly hear a second recording of her saying it underneath, like the line was accidentally doubled in post-production. Hello. Potentially edited purposefully to match the panic of Vincent's phone call, the Three Stooges short, Brideless Groom, that Lance is watching is played out of sequence. Lance has a cigarette in his right hand. But when he goes to the door after hearing the squealing tires, the cigarette's gone.
What the hell was that?
He runs out onto the front lawn after Vincent crashes into his house, and you can see tire tracks in the grass from the real car that drove past earlier in the shot. The crashed car had already been placed there for filming. You can also see the film crew reflected in the glass when Lance throws the door open.
Give it to me.
Here.
Vincent draws a red circle on Mia's chest to mark where he needs to stab the syringe, but just before he raises it, you can see the plunger is already pushed all the way down, meaning it's empty before the injection even happens. When Mia's revived, Trudy jumps onto the couch, but then does it again in the very next shot. The red circle on Mia's chest is far fainter here than in the close-up when it was drawn. In reality, adrenaline alone wouldn't reliably revive someone from a heroin overdose. CPR, oxygen, and ventilation would be essential. Naloxone, not adrenaline, is the real antidote. It's hard to believe she'd recover instantly with no follow-up care, something that would be almost impossible to keep secret from Marcellus.
If she croaks on me, I'm a f***ing grease spot.
Despite smoke pouring from the hood of Vincent's car after he crashes it into Lance's house, it's working perfectly when he drives Mia home. Once they arrive, both Vincent and Mia's arm positions keep changing between cuts. Watch Vincent's arm shift throughout the scene whenever the angle changes. From the front, Mia's left arm is either up near her face or across her body.
Vincent.
But whenever the camera cuts behind her, it's down by her side.
Do you want to hear my Fox Force 5 joke? I can keep a secret if you can.
They agree to keep the overdose a secret from Marcellus, but in addition to the medical reasons mentioned earlier, we saw when Vincent first met Mia that the house has security cameras watching the living room where it occurred. In the flashback where we see Butch as a boy, he has blue eyes, but as an adult, Bruce Willis's Butch has green eyes.
This watch was first purchased by your great-grandfather, during the First World War. It was bought in a little general store in Knoxville, Tennessee, by Private Doughboy Ryan Coolidge on the day he set sail for Paris.
The timing here is highly unlikely. If the watch was bought on the day Butch's great-grandfather headed to Paris, he would have had to travel hundreds of miles straight after to even reach the ocean.
Your granddad, Dane Coolidge, was called upon by his country to go overseas and fight the Germans once again. It's time to call it World War II. Dane was a Marine and he was killed at Battle of Wake Island.
Captain Kuhn says Butch's grandfather fought the Germans as a Marine, but the Marines mostly fought the Japanese in the Pacific, where Wake Island actually is. Additionally, the Battle of Wake Island happened just days after America entered the war, making it impossible for someone newly drafted to have been sent there.
3 days before the Japanese took the island, your granddad asked the gunner on an Air Force transport to deliver his golden watch.
The watch supposedly went to a gunner on an Air Force transport, but the US Air Force didn't exist yet. It was called the Army Air Corps, and those transports weren't armed. Coons holds up the watch, which looks to be showing a time of around 6 o'clock.
This watch.
But in the close-up that follows moments later, the hands suddenly show 12. As Vincent walks down the corridor, you can spot an HMI lamp, a high-intensity light used on film sets to mimic daylight, sitting on a stand through the doorway. This taxi scene is intentionally stylized, so this isn't really an error, but worth highlighting. When Butch throws his boxing gear out the window, you can hear it hit the ground.
Beating.
I'll tell you what. Give me one of those cigarettes you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
The smoke from his cigarette drifts calmly out the window too, making it clear the cab isn't actually moving, despite the background projection showing it speeding away.
Hey, Lisa. You were in that fight on the radio. You killed the other boxing man.
Despite recognizing Butch as the boxer from the fight she'd just heard on the radio, Esmeralda later asks him what his name is, but she should already know.
And what is your name?
Butch.
Butch.
So, Esmeralda Villalobos.
Your name is Spanish, but I am Colombian.
The correct Spanish spelling of Esmeralda has the middle E and A switched around. Her surname would also be one word, Villalobos, which means village of wolves. Butch falls asleep in the motel with an open book lying face down on the nightstand. When he wakes up in the very next scene, the book is closed. Fabienne's reflection in the TV screen shows her whole body, but the TV's mounted too high and she's standing too close for that to be possible. It must have been added deliberately, making this another stylistic choice rather than a mistake. Her right hand jumps from her foot to her head as the camera cuts. Butch starts searching for his watch, and the shadows from the hangers and the way Fabienne's clothes hang on her suitcase both change between shots. Butch pulls up and parks near his apartment under an overcast sky, but in the very next shot, it's bright blue. He scopes out his apartment building from across the street. It's 2 stories tall. But once he's inside the courtyard, the building is now 3 stories. Considering how loud the toilet flush is through the closed door, it's hard to believe Vince didn't hear Butch making noise in the kitchen. He also grabs the Pop-Tarts with his right hand in the close-up, but they're in his left in the wide shot. After shooting Vincent, Butch pushes the bloody door open with his fingertips, leaving prints, and never washes his hands before wiping the gun clean on only one side. During their chase just before the pawn shop scene, Marcellus is far behind Butch and even on the ground as Butch keeps running, but you can already hear him outside before Butch enters the shop. And he follows him in just moments after, far quicker than he realistically could have caught up. After several punches, there's a shot of Marcellus with Butch's hand on his shoulder, but the surrounding shots show his hand raised in a fist. The water spray and Butch's position are inconsistent between cuts. In these shots, the water is always hitting Butch and Marcellus from above and off to the right. Both their heads are held at a similar level here, but when the camera first cuts behind them to show Maynard, Butch is hunched over and his head isn't visible. In all of these shots, Maynard is spraying from between them and at or below their head level. As he walks off to put the canister away, Marcellus's shirt is untucked differently than before, and the blood on Butch's shirt looks darker and slightly shifted too. While some of this could be explained by the water spray, these small continuity changes appear throughout the scene. The shadow of the boom mic is visible on Zed's face in this shot. Butch picks up the chainsaw, gripping the rear handle with his left hand and the top handle with his right. When he puts it down moments later, his hand positions have swapped, right on the rear handle, left on top. He then goes to pick up the katana from its stand. The handle is on the right and the blade on the left. When he takes it in the next shot, the orientation has flipped, with the handle now on his left and the blade on his right. Butch slices Maynard across the torso with the katana, and while it leaves a bloody streak, his t-shirt isn't actually cut or torn by the blade. He then stabs Maynard behind him, with the blade pointing back as he pulls it out. As Zed steps forward in the next shot, the katana is suddenly facing forward toward his face, but when the camera cuts back to Butch, he's readjusting his grip from before. Zed has had the entire time Maynard was being attacked to grab his gun, but just stands there watching. As Butch goads him to pick it up,
Come on, Zed, up, boy.
he's also standing much farther away than he was a moment ago, with noticeably more space between him and Zed. Marcellus is suddenly free from being hogtied, even though Butch never cuts him loose. He then shoots Zed with the shotgun, which appears to hit him in the chest, stomach, and left hand. He hits the ground with his head to the left and legs to the right. Marcellus racks the gun, pulling the foregrip back and forward to eject the spent shell and load a new one. In the next shot, Zed's wounds have changed. Now they're mostly around his stomach, and his chest looks uninjured. Both of his hands are bloody, though likely from touching the gunshot wound. He's also laying in the opposite direction from when he initially hit the ground. When the camera cuts back to Marcellus, the shotgun's foregrip is pulled all the way back again, even though he just pumped it forward moments earlier. He and Butch then speak at a normal volume, despite the shotgun blast in the confined basement that would have left their ears ringing. Butch leaves the pawn shop holding Zed's motorcycle keys in his left hand, but when he looks at them in the close-up, they're suddenly in his right. The motorcycle itself changes between shots too. Outside the shop, it has dual velocity stacks, but outside the motel, those are gone. Fabienne calls the chopper a motorcycle.
Where did you get this motorcycle?
And Butch corrects her.
It's not a motorcycle, baby. It's a chopper. Come on.
Though technically, she's right. The term chopper comes from the fact that they're chopped up, customized motorcycles, so both terms are correct. Butch grabs the chopper's handlebars and then grabs them again when the camera cuts. Before the man bursts out of the bathroom and shoots at Vincent and Jules, you can already see the bullet holes from his shots in the wall behind them. When he does come out, literally guns blazing, the cylinder on his double-action revolver doesn't spin, which it should, to load the next round into the barrel. His jeans are buttoned when he emerges, but last we saw him, they were undone. He's still clutching his revolver, so it's unclear when he would have buttoned them up. Just as Vincent and Jules return fire, you can see the outline of 2 squib packs under the shooter's sweater before he's hit. The bullet holes themselves are perpendicular to the wall, but they should be angled to match the shooter's position at the side of the room. Sometimes seeing the shadow of the boom mic just happens.
Wrong. This doesn't just happen.
Although they have it later, Vincent and Jules leave the apartment after the shootout without ever picking up the briefcase they came to collect. Vincent accidentally shoots Marvin in the face and blood splatters across the back window, but from that range, the bullet should have gone straight through the glass too. Freezing this exterior shot from behind the car, Vincent isn't even facing Marvin when the gun goes off, unlike the interior angle where he's turned toward him.
What's happening? Oh, man, I shot Marvin in the face.
What? We're on a city street in broad daylight here.
Believe it, man.
Here, you can see that Vincent's gun doesn't actually have a clip inserted. Just like earlier when Marcellus fires the shotgun, Vincent fires his Colt 45 inside the car, right next to his and Jules' heads. Yet neither of them shows any sign of hearing loss afterward. The close-up of Jules washing his hands shows blood all around the sink, but in the next shot from behind him and Vincent, it's completely gone. Jimmy's kitchen clock never moves from about 8:17. The Wolf's watch later shows 8:40, and he takes roughly 10 minutes to reach the house. Everything lines up perfectly with the hour and a half before Bonnie's return.
Bonnie comes home and finds a dead body in her house. I'm gonna get divorced. She comes home from work in about an hour and a half.
Showing that the kitchen clock wasn't just stopped, but deliberately fixed to that time to keep the story's timeline consistent. In doing so, though, it ends up revealing a small production error.
The clock is ticking, is that right, Jimmy?
100%.
The camera operator's shadow is cast on the wall just before Bonnie enters the kitchen. The wolf opens the car door to inspect the cleanup, but the next shot looks through the window of the now closed door. It then cuts back and he closes the open door. As Vincent and Jules undress before getting hosed down, Jules takes off his trousers first, but when the camera cuts, they're suddenly back on as he removes his shirt and he goes to take them off a second time. Despite being shot in the head at point-blank range, the wolf writing "no head" in his notebook earlier and saying,
"You got a corpse in a car, minus the head in the garage."
Marvin's head is still intact and attached to his body here.
We're going to a place called Monster Joe's Truck and Tow. The place is North Hollywood, so a few twists and turns aside, we'll be going up Hollywood Way.
From the wolf's notes, we know Jimmy's house is in Toluca Lake. Hollywood Way runs north to south just east of there, but North Hollywood, where Monster Joe's is located, lies to the northwest, meaning the wolf's directions would actually take them away from their destination.
Maybe I could drop you two off. Where do you live?
Redondo?
Inglewood.
Move out of the sticks, fellas.
The wolf offers Vincent and Jules a ride, but drives a two-seater Acura, which would already be at capacity with just him and Raquel. Notice the vehicles parked behind the yellow VW. When they speed away in the next shot, these vehicles are completely different.
It's fucking English Bob.
I know
all
that
right?
now.
Was he cool or what?
After the waitress brings Vincent his pancakes, he butters and pours syrup on them, and hasn't yet taken a bite when he starts laughing at Jules' joke.
You know what I'm saying?
But when the camera cuts to his close-up shot, he's suddenly chewing food.
Oh man, that's good.
The water level and ice in the duo's glasses change in this scene. It's melted here. But after cutting to Vincent and back again, the ice is back in Jules' glass. As Pumpkin opens the kitchen door, the camera's shadow is visible on the wall. Then, moments later, the set lights are reflected in the dessert cabinet as he ushers the chefs into the diner. When Pumpkin pushes the manager's head down onto the counter, you can spot a crew member reflected in the cash register.
Chill out, honey bunny.
When Honey Bunny's shouting during the holdup, you can see saliva on her chin.
Don't you hurt him.
Nobody's gonna hurt anybody. We're all gonna be like three little Fonzies here. And what's Fonzie like?
But once she calms down, it's disappeared.
Cool.
She points her gun at Vincent with both hands on it in the shot of just her. But in the wide shot, she's holding it with just one hand. The set lights are visible once again in the reflection of the closing door as Vincent and Jules leave the diner. Jules' famous Ezekiel 25:17 speech is a misquote, but it was intentionally rewritten by Tarantino. Only the final line comes from real scripture.
And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
The rest was designed to sound mythic, lifted from the 1973 martial arts film Bodyguard Kiba. This reflects Jules' character, who believes he's quoting the Bible but is really quoting Pulp Fiction, perfectly fitting the film's theme of distorted morality. The recurring apartment and diner scenes are told from different perspectives, showing events slightly differently each time.
I love you, Pumpkin.
I love you, honey bunny.
Everybody be cool, this is a robbery.
Any of you fucking pricks move! I'm gonna execute one of you motherfuckers! Last one of you!
These aren't continuity errors, but deliberate stylistic choices that highlight how each character perceives the same moment. And that's all the errors in Pulp Fiction. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, let me know in the comments if I missed any, and ring the bell to be notified when the next one drops. The Batman.